What's up, everybody? Welcome to Off the Rails, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma of addiction through open discussion on all things recovery related. My name is Mark, and with me always are Jared and Dave. And today we have a very special guest. Jared, you want to introduce him?
Yeah, this is Christopher Patton. And we met him at Newgate. And yeah, he's very smart, hilarious, and we're excited to hear your story, Christopher.
Awesome.
And how you like going by Christopher.
Yeah. I'm giving everybody carpal tunnel syndrome for a long time now, all 11 letters of my name. Yeah, awesome. Thanks a lot for having me out, guys. Having me on the show. It's an honor to be on here with you guys. I'm impressed with all the good things that you're doing and ending the stigma of addiction. So yeah, I guess I'll kind of run through a little bit of my story, what it looked like. If you guys want to stop me or chime in, just let me know. So I met all you fine gentlemen, Jared, Dave, and Mark at Newgate, and we went through some hard times together. Went through a lot of Kleenex. I think I cried for about 16 days straight there. But before that, when I was a young kid, I was sick a lot. I was in the hospital kind of 2 weeks out of every 4 due to asthma. I was a severe asthmatic when I lived in Toronto with my family. At that point in time, because I was so sick, I had taken massive doses of cortisone and prednisone, and that had deteriorated my bones. And so my family moved to Ottawa when I was, I think I was 8 or 9. I've got 2 other brothers, and because of the massive doses of cortisone and prednisone from when I was asthmatic, it deteriorated my bones. So I also had major hip surgery when I was 13 years old. I later had my hip replaced when I was about, I think it was 26. So I'm titanium from about the waist down. Terrible place to be when you're in an airport. But yeah, so I had some pretty big kind of health issues early on in my life. My family life was pretty good. I grew up I lived with the Joneses basically. My parents were good to me, but I guess that's kind of brief little life into how bad the disease is and how it can affect everybody. Because I had everything going for me. Did well in school. Wanted to initially go off to school to be a doctor, but didn't like taking some math. So I decided I had to scale it back, and eventually I was going to go into law school. But yeah, I went to university down in Windsor. But before that, I guess I had started drinking when I was about 13. So when I was 13, I was stealing beer with my best friend. His name was John. He passed away a couple of years ago due to alcoholism, actually. So we used to take beers at his cottage and get in the boat and drink them out in the boat and then scoot around. So I started drinking kind of 3 or 4 beers with him here and there. And by the time I was about 16 years old, I was drinking every weekend on Friday nights and Saturday nights. I grew up in Barrhaven. And if any of you know anything about Ottawa, they call it Farhaven because you're literally in the middle of, cornfields. And there's not much to do there, not a lot. So I was drinking every weekend. And then it was probably around the time in university, I realized that I had an issue. So in my early 20s, I knew that it was more than everybody else, right? It was my addict brain had taken over and started to take over. And it wasn't just about having a couple drinks. It became Operation Drink the Fridge. I started doing drugs a little bit later in high school than everybody else. But when I started, there was no stop. And it wasn't ever enough for me. And my addict brain was just going more and more and more. So when I was drinking everything I had. When I was doing drugs, I was doing every drug that I could get, which is kind of funny because when I spoke to John before I went to Newgate, he's like, "What's your addiction?" I said, "What do you got?" Basically, so whatever I get my hands on, really. But my drug of choice would be cocaine, and that was kind of that was the one that did the most damage to friends and family and relationships. Started doing cocaine when I was in my early 20s. And I think, as most people with addiction can attest, it kind of goes from fun to fucked. Sometimes it goes faster for people, sometimes it goes a little slower. But I started doing it, I would do a line, and then I would smoke a joint, have a bunch of beer, and it was a fun social thing. And then it became kind of every weekend, and then it became copious amounts. So after I finished school, I started working on a trading floor. And by working on a trading floor and working on a currency trading floor, drugs were rampant. So if you want to know what it's like working on a currency trading floor, it's exactly like Wolf on Wall Street.
That is I word for word have that question wrote right here.
Yeah.
I do. My question was, is it how movies like Wolf of Wall Street make it out to be? And yeah, you answered that question. That's amazing.
It really is like that, Mark. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I could tell some stories that are so offside that my friends and family may never talk to me again. But it was. Sorry, go ahead.
What was that movie that you had? What I watched in rehab that you had to walk out of the room for?
Oh yeah, Boiler Room. So that was a big trigger. So there's a pitch in Boiler Room, and I saw Boiler Room early in life, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be like that. And there's a pitch where he says, anyone that doesn't say money doesn't buy happiness doesn't fucking have any. Look at the smile on my face, baby, ear to ear. Mom and dad don't like what you do for a living. Fuck you, mom and dad. See how it feels when you're making their Lexus payments. And it's just a pitch like that. And yeah, when I got into currency, I started right on the ground floor. I worked myself right up to the top. Eventually I started working for the largest brokerage in the world, and worked myself up to number 2 trader. And my final year trading, I traded about $1 billion. So all of this, by the time I kind of switched over and moved out of the business at that point in time. And what's really funny, you guys, is that I hid this from everybody, like how bad it was. And I was so regimented about the way that I would do drugs, and I would only hang out with certain people on certain days to make sure that wasn't such a big issue. And I would have, 3 or 4 different dealers so that it didn't seem like I was doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And like it was just so mess. Like, by the time I kind of submitted and was like, I need help, I was so far gone at that point in time. So a lot of times people ask me, like, and especially friends and family, when I got out of rehab and I came out on social media and stuff, they're like, how bad was it? I'm like, well, I did about $1.3 million worth of drugs and alcohol over the past 20 years. So I don't know. It's, it was a hell of a drug. But it stripped me from everything, right? Like, and now that I'm sober and now I have all these great things and these great things that happen to me, I realized that, what I thought at the time when I started doing cocaine, I thought it made me fast and it made me intelligent and synapses was firing and things were happening. But in reality, it was just slowing me down. And it was pretty brutal. So, so I guess when it got real serious, I would say probably about a year ago, was when people started noticing. And what happened was I just wasn't becoming accountable to anything, and I wasn't dependable. And the isolation and the COVID, it just started pouring on and pouring on and pouring on, and COVID made it easy to hide from people and to make it seem like I was busy, but really, at that point in time, my addiction was rampant, and I was doing drugs. I no longer was I doing drugs because I'm like, hey, it's a weekend, let's party. I'm doing drugs because I'm trying to be happy at that point in time. And like I've said to you guys before, like once at Newgate, as soon as I started getting happy upstairs, like the world just started changing for me. So I guess about a year ago, things started to get really bad. And unfortunately, I'd suck it all on my wife, and she was the only one that really knew how bad it was. And I guess to put it in perspective, I ended up walking into an intervention. I didn't know what was going down. My brothers had parked around the corner of the house, and I had been up since Saturday. at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and the intervention happened at Sunday at about 6 o'clock at night when I got home from work. So I'd been on a tear thinking, okay, I'll finally be able to crash. But I got home and my brothers were here, my wife was here, and they said, you know, we're going to take you to get some help. You need some help. And at that point in time, the whole intervention really lasted about like 8 minutes. But it's not like television, man. It's not all, you know, smiles and hugs and stuff like that. I fought it for a little bit and thought, you know, I'd never been away from my children for that long, and I was scared. Like many people in addiction, it was terrifying. I was about to do something that I had no idea where I was going. I had no idea what rehab was going to look like. I had no idea what detox was going to look like, which was another thing, because I like 20 years, and I don't remember a day in those 20 years where I was ever sober. And if it wasn't cocaine, it was marijuana and alcohol in large consumptions to try to fill the gap of happiness. So it was tough. So my brothers rounded me up, and I thanked them, and I thank my wife to this day for saving my life. And I got in the car, and they said to me, like, we don't know where you're going, but they didn't even have a plan at that point in time. But they're like, you're going. And then they brought me to my parents' house, and they didn't know if I was going to be able to muscle through the detox. And thank God I'm only going to have to do detox once in my life, because fuck, strap in. Like, you want some awkward sweat and regret nights. Man, you go through some sheets, man. Like it's
especially 20 years worth. I couldn't.
Yeah, it's and the whole time too, I'm with family members that had no idea it was that bad. I mean, they always knew it was bad, and I told them when I was younger, I said, like, I just don't have that voice on my shoulder that says, okay, enough is enough. Or like, you can stop now. I was, you know, let's watch the sun come up and see how much I can get into my system, or let's do this drug because it's going to keep me up, and then I'll take this drug to, you know, help bring me back down, and I'll figure it out. And it was just the fuck show, right? and yeah, I ended up in Newgate, and then she Fine Gentlemen, which was fantastic, and turned my life around. And sobriety's been phenomenal. It's been fantastic. I do all types of stuff. Like, I joke around with my family. I'm like, you know, let's get awkward. And I make them do these awkward check-ins, right? You know, how you doing physically? How you doing mentally? How you doing emotionally? Tell me how you're doing spiritually, you know? And how many times my family said, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do with spiritually. And I'm like, hey, you got to ride the wave. You got to ride the wave, baby.
I do the same morning check-in every morning.
Yeah. It's good, right?
Yeah. Well, it kind of gets you on the same page for everyone. You know, if you right away, you know, if someone's having a shitty day, and you can kind of manage it from there, right?
Well, it's real talk. It's real talk. I do with my family members too, and it's been so eye-opening to have these conversations with them, where it's a heart to heart, and we're really finding out how we're doing it, and it's not this surface conversations, right? Where it's, you know, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Or how you doing? Oh, I'm good. I'm great. It gets to the nitty gritties, and it also helps you to figure out, you know, what's important to people and what's important for them to accomplish on a day-to-day basis, and, you know, what makes them happy. And it's brought, I don't know, I'm like I don't know what to say. I'm kind of like a little fucking sober cheerleader. I'm like, yay, sober.
Everything you can do, you got to do the best.
Yeah, it's important. It's important. So I now I'm doing things like you, Jared, and I remember you mentioning this. You go to a lot of meetings. I go to a lot of meetings too. I'll be at 4 meetings this week. So I do everything from drive from Smith Falls to I go out to Perth, head to downtown. I mean, I had to figure out which ones were going to work for me too, and which ones and which individuals I kind of jive was the best. Because there were some times where I went to some of the meetings where I think the guy beside me was sober for about 8 minutes before he rolled in. But, you know, people are trying, and that's what's important, and that's why I like going to those meetings, because it's like-minded individuals that are trying to do the right thing, and it's surprising how much you can gain from going to a meeting and being around people and just the positivity. Like couldn't tell you how many times I sat in my truck outside of a meeting going like, fuck, how did I get here? Like, fuck. And you go, right? You go, and afterwards you're like, man, that was awesome.
And you're glad you did it after.
Exactly. I'm glad I did it after.
Christopher, what meetings do you go to?
I primarily go to NA meetings.
Okay.
Those are the ones where I kind of finding the best connection with, and the literature. I go over the literature all the time, and then I spend some time as well doing stuff on my website where I help out people. I had about, I think since I started, I had about 40,000 people that have just taken a look at it, and it just feels good to give back to the community. So I also do a lot of volunteer service with the food bank and the food cupboard, and so I do donating, and then I have all this extra time to spend with my family, and we do all this great stuff. And so what's really important to me, I'm a family man at heart. It's good to be home, because like you guys know, I was, day 27, all set to go home. Asked my wife, I'm like, okay, when are you picking me up? And she's like, yeah, no. So spent a little bit of time with my mom and dad to figure it out, just to make sure that things are stabilized with it. But now that I'm sober, things are definitely like that. It's a better way to live for sure.
Hey, Christopher, your website in the description. Keepscomingback.ca and get a Ride the Wave t-shirt.
Thanks, Jared. It's the reason why I started actually is because I go to these NA meetings. I don't know if you guys have found the same, but it feels like you're meeting in a basement of the back corner of like, hello, like everyone's like shriveled and stuff. Like, oh my gosh, like hide from society. I didn't want to do that, right? Like, and I did the same thing with my social media. I came out and said, hey, this is me. This is what I've gone through. If there's anything I can do to help you, you want me to pick you up, bring you to a meeting, I'll do that. So it's I just didn't want to hide from it. It's a little bit weird. I mean, having to introduce yourself with a disease and like, hi, my name is Christopher, I'm an addict. You get kind of used to it, but at first, it feels weird, because it's like you don't go to a doctor's office and like, hi, my name is Christopher, I have diabetes. You don't sit around for people and disclose what type of disease you have. But it's really great to get out there to meetings. So I wanted to have it like an apparel, where I thought, how cool would it be to see other people that have t-shirts and be like, yeah, that's right on, and keep walking that path. So I also posted kind of stuff for forums, and then places where on the website where people can go to see help. And Newgate 180, which is a great one. So yeah, I do all types of weird stuff. I meditate these days, I journal, I work out, which feels good. Got another workout in today. And I also smudge. So shout out Newgate, Nathan, boy.
That's awesome.
So give Christopher's website a visit. Was there anything that motivated? Yeah, well, you just kind of mentioned that actually. I don't know what I'm thinking here.
I was gonna ask you, Christopher. When you first, I know it was an intervention, so it wasn't really necessarily, your idea to go to rehab at the time, but you had a lot going on, right? The new business, and you got kids at home. Is there any advice you'd give to anyone that's like always maybe, there's always something going on, so they're maybe using that as an excuse or a scapegoat not even necessarily go to rehab, but like go to meetings or to seek out help? Is there anything you would say now going through it that you could suggest to someone?
Yeah, going through it, especially within this pandemic, like an addict alone is in bad company. So go to meetings, go to rehab. I mean, since I've been out of rehab, I've talked to 3 people and been able to help them and have their family walk through it and show them what it's going to be like. But it was hard, right? But you kind of have to want it. You have to want to go yourself. And you have to kind of submit to the process. And that was super hard for me. Like, I'm not only am I an addict, but I'm fucking arrogant, like, right? So the humility behind it and being humble, it really helps me bring me down. And and there's nothing more terrifying than getting in a car, not know where you're going, leaving work, family, home, but you need to get better. And it's the only way to get better is to put in the long hours, the hard work, to do the counseling, to get to the root of the problem. Because as you guys know, I suffer from depression and anxiety, which I think a lot of people do. And you can't cure depression and anxiety with cocaine. You heard it here from the source's mouth. You can't do it. You gotta put in the hard work to get to the root of the problem. So, and I didn't want to go. I had a list of, 3 big excuses that I thought were enough. And the fact of the matter is that if I had not gone to rehab, I would be dead. I wasn't going to make it. I wasn't going to make it another. Sorry, I wasn't going to make it another 30 days. There's no way. I was so depressed and so suicidal at that point. It was really real for me. It was really scary, and it was super, super, super scary for my wife. My wife is the best person on the planet. That's my trick also to getting married. If you want to get married, find the best person you've ever met in your life and just attach yourself to her, like Jared just recently did.
Yeah.
And that was great. Like she was able to put someone in front of me, and I can't say. My younger brother Tyler is 13 years younger than me, and he sat across from me and he started the speech. And it's not, when it's happening to you and you didn't know it was going to happen, it's not like a television show. It's terrifying. But if you listen to your loved ones and go to rehab, go to the NA meetings, go to SMART meetings, find something that works for you to stay sober, because you're worth it. And it was like 3 weeks into rehab before I was able to feel like I was worth it, because I was at such a low point in my life. It was scary. I didn't even know what I looked like when I went to rehab. I hadn't looked at myself in the mirror for months, because I couldn't stand it. And I had thought in my head in the isolation that not that people were against me, but that I was just a disappointment. And I felt like I was just letting everybody down. And went to rehab, did the hard work with you guys, and I don't know how to explain it to people. If you're thinking about going to rehab, go. It's like a fuck show camp, but it's a great time and some great laughs. Like we pull some great pranks, and you get real with people too. Like if all you know is using friends, now you've got some sober friends that are awesome dudes and making a difference, like you guys are doing with this show. I mean, this is great. It's some heart to heart talk. It's some hard stuff to get out, and it's real talk, and it's helping people. And that's what's important, I think, is to help people, to help your fellow brother, your other brothers, and pick people up when they're down, and help people get better, because this disease affects so many people and so many different walks of life. But it's great. You think about going to rehab, you meet good guys like this, Dave, Jared, and Mark. Heyo.
Yeah.
That one line that you always said, where you would rehab and you didn't want to meet or make any friends.
Yeah.
And then look at you now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, like I said earlier, I'm arrogant. I'm also, even though I'm not doing drugs and alcohol anymore, I'm still an asshole. But you meet fantastic people, and I was so used to being isolated, and I was so terrified about going. Right, it's scary. I didn't know what was going to happen. Like my brothers were joking around with me before I went the day before. They're like, "Hey, do you want us to teach you how to do like a rear naked choke or like some fight moves before you go?" And I thought, well, I don't know what I'm looking into. And they're like, well, you better. They're like, when was the last time you were in a fist fight? And they're like, you want to practice? And I'm like, I'm going to rehab. I want to get better. Like, and they're telling me I need to, practice rear naked chokes and stuff like that. So it's not like that. Just in case you're wondering, rehab is the farthest thing from that. You'll meet some of the greatest people, and you have sober friends. And I tried really hard when I got there. I said, I'm going to keep my head down and do the hard work on myself, and focus on it. And it just kind of happens, right? You just, all of a sudden things aren't so foggy, and you start to have some real conversations with people. It's almost like when you were a kid and you had, when you're 10 years old and you have a sleepover with your buddy Billy, and all of a sudden you wake up the next morning like, did we just become best friends? You're like, yep. So that's what it's like. You meet some fantastic people and it's nice to be around like-minded people, and then the people that are going through the same things and have always had the same problems that you've had, and you go, oh shit, I'm not alone. And that's I think the greatest benefit of it is you're no longer alone, and you don't have to go through all these things alone. So you've got some great people and some lifelong friends.
That's what I thought was the kind of the craziest thing too. Like, I thought I was completely nuts to be hiding alcohol and drugs and everything, like in the most random places. But then you get in there and the stories you hear about other people doing the same thing, it really goes, like, it makes you feel a lot better that you're not just thinking you're the only crazy one out there.
Yeah,
You're alone first. Sorry, Christopher, I jumped in there.
No, it was great to sit across from Mark, because our drug of choice is the same. So every time, every time he's saying trigger, I'm like, yeah, I beat you to it. I already thought it. I just didn't say it. But it's it's nice because there's the same thing, right? We were talking about alcohol and how you're fighting it. Everyone's got the same stories, and they can relate, and they know what it's like to try to hide it from other people. And I hid it from my family. Did such a, what I thought was a fantastic job of it. And you get out and people like, you idiot, you didn't have anyone fooled. But at the time, and you're just so sick, right? And yeah, I was just, before I got to Newgate, I was super sick. But it's nice to be on the other side of things for sure. And I'm happy that I can take care of people.
Your daughter must be happy that Daddy doesn't wake up with a headache every day now.
It's shocking, right?
Yeah.
Look, Dad's not sick all the time, and he's up before noon on the weekends. But it's great. I mean, as you know, Jerry, like I in the Newgate, we had to write that letter, right? And I wrote that letter to my daughter, and it was so hard for me because I'd never been away from my kids for longer than 2 days. And I wrote down in the letter, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I'm away for you for 30 days, but I'm away for you 30 days. Sorry, guys. I'm waiting for you 30 days, but I'm there, and I'll be present for the rest of your life. And I really, when I wrote that, I meant it, and I mean that to them. I wasn't there for 30 days of their life, but I am present every day in their life. We get up, we do awesome things. We spent the weekend skating. I found out I'm not in as good a shape as I thought it was. Strap on some skates, and you find that out real fast, right? I'm bent over, holding on to them, trying to teach them how to skate. I found new muscles in my butt I didn't even know I had.
That's awesome.
Have you been able to have that conversation with your kids about where you were to, and if so, can you kind of take us through how it went, or if not, how you kind of plan on having that conversation with them?
Sure. So at first I wasn't sure, and I didn't know how I was going to approach it. And when I went to Newgate, I asked my wife, I said, can you tell them that, I've gone to the hospital? And when she told the girls, they didn't really know how to take it, and they thought they were scared. They thought Dad was sick, because maybe I should mention earlier as well, when I was really sick before I went to Newgate, I stopped taking my medication for diabetes. I also have diabetes, and I ended up doing the funky chicken because my blood sugar level went to 34 in the kitchen floor, because I wasn't monitoring my diabetes, and because I didn't want to live. So I wasn't doing those things. So the kids had seen some pretty dramatic stuff when the ambulance shows up and stuff to take you out. so I wasn't too sure how I was going to approach that. I didn't want them to think that it was just a hospital that I was going to be at. So I told them, and I talked to the girls, and I said, I've gone to a wellness center. And I explained to them that that I was sick, and that I needed to get well, and I needed to do some work on myself. So they didn't really fully understand it. But when I got home, they were both in tears and so excited to see me, because I'm a family man, and I'll always be a family man. And my girls and my wife are so important to me. And when I got home, they kind of asked me a little bit more about it. They're like, well, what was it like? And the funny thing is that I've got all these great stories, right? These funny stories that I tell about, throwing stuff at each other on the couch, or stacking chairs in front of your room, Mark, as you're trying to go to bed. Or, and so they're just thinking like it's kind of a fun camp that I went to. But I told them I had to go to a wellness center because I had a problem with addiction. And so they both know it. My wife had actually talked to their school about it. And my wife was able to get support from a lot of people when I went. So, and she goes on those meetings with Newgate every week, and she talks to everybody's family. And she's able to get that support. So I had friends and stuff that checked in on my family when I was gone to Newgate, which is fantastic. I love them for it. But I was very, very open about it. My life is really an open book, and I practice what I preach. I don't hide behind anything. I am who I am, and I have a disease, and I went away to get better. And they know I do things. And the funny thing is, Mark, is that they see a big change, right? Dad's not sick anymore. I mean, like, my skin color doesn't look like gray. Like, I look like, I saw a picture of myself before I went. I look a little bit like Skeletor, really. Like, my eyes are so sunken in the back of my head. And they know now. I get up, I go for a walk with my girls in the morning, and we do all this type of stuff. And now they're just thinking like probably everyone should go to a wellness center because they have way more fun because of it. But I'm present, right? The best part is I get home sometimes at night, shut my phone off, I spend time. Like Wednesday nights, usually before I go to a meeting, is Boba Fett night. So we always, get a pizza and sit around and watch the new Boba Fett. And we do tons of stuff as a family now, which is great because I'm not sick. I'm not hungover. I haven't been up for 3 days straight. Even though I was always here and always present for my family, and I always read the kids, the story before they went to bed. Now I can really be like the best version of myself that I always wanted. So it was a hard conversation, Mark. It's tough to have, but I thought that it would be best to have that conversation with them right up front in case their friends ask them. Kids are smart now, right? They know what's going on. And maybe now because, and when I've spoken to my family, they all know I have the disease now. So we don't have to hide in the shadows from it. And so if my children suffer from it, or if someone else suffers from it, I've become a resource for people and I don't have all the answers yet. I'm still new in my recovery, but at least I'm able to direct people in the right spots, or what I think to be the right spots. But yeah, so I didn't hide from it. They know about it. And as the questions probably progress later on, as they get a little bit older, I'll be open and honest with them about it.
Have you thought about that at all yet? Or are you just kind of enjoying the present as far as like, when they get to the age of a lot of kids start trying alcohol or doing that kind of thing? Or is that something that you're going to try to totally shelter them from, or just let them kind of experience and just educate them on, risks involved and that kind of thing? Or you just kind of not want to put yourself there yet?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, Dave, to be honest. I haven't really thought that far ahead what it'll look like. I'm obviously going to be hyper aware of all that type of stuff, but I also don't want to be that person, that used to smoke, that quit smoking, and then hates on all the other smokers, right? Because I don't think everyone has a disease, and you kind of have to figure out how your life is going to go. But I am going to be hyper aware because, my children have, 23 of my chromosomes and they've got my genes, right? So I will be kind of hyper aware. but I'll be able to kind of educate them. And I don't think when I went to school and when I was their age that I had that type of awareness about drugs and, you know, what they kind of look like. I remember the first time I used, I thought, holy crap, it's like flipping a switch from regular television to high definition television. You go, whoa, kind of no one kind of gives you the real story, I found, of what all that type of stuff was. And plus drugs are changing so much right now, right? They're so scary. And I think that's a big reason why I love hugging people at NA meetings, because you never know you never know if you're going to see the person ever again. You know, there's that fentanyl stuff. It's super scary. It's laced with all the stuff, and drugs are so different now. There's all the synthetics that are involved, and even drugs that you think are safe are not safe anymore. You know, it's not like back when I was 13, 14, you get some weed from some guy down by the bleacher. Now it's like, you know, if you don't get 30% THC weed, you know, you're okay. And most of the stuff is, excuse the term, it's fucking coma weed. Like people smoke a joint, they're just like, and this, you know, looking for Doritos and pop. You know, it's not. Things are changing and drugs are changing. So I think the times are also changing as well. And now that people realize that it really is a disease, I think people are becoming more aware of it. You know, Statistics Canada is starting to take a look at this, and I don't think COVID's doing anybody any favors. I read a study recently. It showed about mice and talked about there's one kind of group of mice that they gave in this placebo that had this beautiful like mice home, and they were all around these other mice, and things were fantastic. And then they put the other mice that were kind of in a little cage, and then what they did is they did a drip of morphine, and it turns out the ones that were isolating would go to the morphine first chance they got, and then actually kill themselves on the morphine, whereas the ones that were in kind of a good habitat and with the other mice and had all the fun like hamster wheels and stuff like that, they didn't even touch it. They didn't even go to it. So I think with the isolation and the feeling alone, it's been terrible for people. So I think, you know, raising awareness like you guys are doing is fantastic. Off the Rails Recovery, you boys are doing great jobs.
Thanks, Christopher.
Thank you very much. I did have one more question for you. Have you been surprised with the amount of support you've been shown in your recovery? Because I remember like when I made that decision to get help, I was really nervous about like what people would think, but the amount of support I've been shown has been incredible. And has that been something that you can relate to?
Definitely. The amount of support that I got, the amount of love that I received. And I did some stuff like you guys, which is, it's scary to put yourself out there, right? It's hard to put yourself out on social media or go to your family and say, I'm an addict. And this is how bad it is. And for other people that are thinking about, you know, going to get help, you know, family and loved ones will be there for you. You would be shocked at the amount of support that I've received. I had people call me out of the blue saying, you know, I'm with you. I had people go to coffee with me that I hadn't seen in like 20 years. You know, just people come out of the woodwork, and people inherently are good and want to help other people. And if you ask for help, it's hard to do. It's really hard to do, but asking for help was the best thing I've ever done.
I like, did you find when you were in active addiction, did you think like everyone hated you? And I don't know, I felt like everyone hated me around me. So I was scared to even ask for help.
Oh man, I can tell you the craziest story, Jared, about how I thought people hated me. So I was so far into drug use, and like the paranoia was so bad. I thought my mom was against me. I thought that my family was conspiring and hated me. For lack of a better term, I thought that the world was against me, and the people that were with me were disappointed with me. So it was such a feeling of being alone. And it was so scary. The amount of time I spent, you know, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, no sleep, rocking at the end of my bed after a massive bender, going, what am I doing with my life? I can't do this anymore. It was brutal. But yeah, I thought I was sick, right? And that's what the disease does to you. It makes you think things that aren't even there. I mean, how sick do you have to be to think your mom is against you? I mean, it's kind of messed up.
And then when you get healthy and sober again, you realize that everyone just wanted the best for you and loves you.
Exactly. And people love you and they miss you and they want you to get better. And at the time you don't realize it. You don't realize how sick you are, and how bad things have gone. And you want to talk about hiding stuff, and man, I'm the champ. But I challenge anyone to an Easter egg hunt, because I'm able to hide anything anywhere at any point in time. It's so crazy when it affects you, and it affects your loved ones too as well. Like, how sick does it have to be to the best person on the planet? My wife, wasn't sure about me coming home. She was just scared. Right? She just didn't want to fall back into that. And it's great. Things really turn around, and it's funny because the more positive things that I'm able to do, and the more support that I'm able to show other people, and the more I'm able to get involved with the community, the better things just start going. So if you're thinking about getting help and you want to come to a meeting, hit me up. I'll pick you up. We're in Ottawa. I'll go anytime. But yeah, it's once you start going and you kind of submit, and you start getting healthy, and you start looking at the world through sober eyes, anything's possible. I once heard a drug addict say that, once you stop doing drugs, anything's possible. And I get up every day and I believe that. And more things you do, they just start steamrolling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good things start happening for once.
Yeah, it's like
Weird.
Hit the sober lottery.
That's awesome, man. It's good to see how well you're doing, and I guess speak for the three of us anyway. Like, you're such a smart, awesome guy. But I love how much you just you wear your heart on your sleeve too. Like, even during this, and you're just you can just tell how much your family means to your wife and your girls, obviously, and man, it's great seeing you. Love you, dude.
It's good. Yeah, I love you too, man. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate what you're doing. I'm really proud of you guys. This is great when you're helping people, and it's not too many people that can say they're making a difference, and you guys are making a difference. So I am honored to be part of your show.
Thank you very much for joining us, Christopher.
Thanks, buddy.
Guys, that's going to be it for today's episode. So if you or someone would like to be on an episode of Off the Rails, hit us up in our information below. Follow us on Instagram, comment, like, subscribe, and check out keepcomingback.ca. All right. Thank you very much.